Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I know it's been so long, I can't even imagine, I can't even think about when the last time I filmed, but I figured I don't even think I even talked about being pregnant since the last time that I filmed. But if you guys follow me on my social media, which is like Instagram and Facebook and stuff, you guys would have known I already had a baby. My baby boy's here with me now. I wanted to introduce you guys to him and kind of tell you guys a little bit about my birth story and my pregnancy leading up to that, since I know I never really got to explain Theo's story and why it's so special to me. I know it's special to me, but I just wanted to share because I feel like it's just a testament as to how special he truly is and everything like that, and how everything just ties in so perfectly. So this is Theo. His actual name is Theodore Alexander. We wanted to have like multiple nicknames for him, so that's why we gave him the name Theodore. And I'll kind of explain all of that as we go, but I just kind of wanted to introduce him because he's obviously here right now, so it'd be weird not to introduce him. I'm trying to even think where to even start this journey. So I originally found out that we were pregnant and expecting in September with Theo. We didn't find out the gender again this time, so we waited the entire time to find out the gender, just because we find that it's just really a sweet surprise to meet our baby for the first time and know the gender when we meet them. So it's just something we like to do, and it just makes it so special, and it just leads up to the birth even more and just makes it more exciting for us. In February, I was about 8 months pregnant. Everything was going so great throughout my pregnancy. I was having such a good pregnancy. I was able to work out and just be so healthy and strong throughout this pregnancy. But at a certain point, I ended up getting COVID. So at about 8 months, I ended up catching COVID. In the beginning of February, I had to quarantine, do my quarantining for 2 weeks. The first week was just like, okay, it was like a common cold. It seemed manageable. About the second week, the turn of the second week, is when things just started going downhill for me. I was having such a difficult time breathing. My dad brought over one of those breathing things so we could check on our fingers like how much oxygen we were getting, and my oxygen levels were starting to go down. I was starting to get a little panicked. I remember at one point I was just having such a difficult time breathing. I was just praying to God. I was like, God, just please don't let anything happen to me. Don't let anything happen to my baby. At that point, I knew I needed to go into the hospital. I went in Valentine's weekend, and then it took me about 8 to 9 hours to finally get seen and find out what was going on with me. So I ended up finding out that I had pneumonia and obviously COVID. And so that's why I was starting to have a more difficult time breathing. My doctor did recommend that I stay so that way they could monitor me, especially because I was pregnant, and they just wanted to be safe and make sure that the baby was safe and I was safe. So I ended up staying there for about 4 days in the hospital. While I was there, they also said I had to start my quarantine over again before I could go back to work. So it was just one thing after another. And at this time, Luisito was also sick as well. The week prior, I had just taken him to the hospital for one of his seizures. So it was just so much going on. And already being pregnant and hormonal, it was just so much for my heart to take. And you know, when you have to stay at a hospital by yourself because it's COVID, it's just, and you have a baby at home and you just want to be with your family, it's just heartbreaking, to be honest with you. It was just a hard time for me. I finally was released from the hospital. They were worried about some possible blood clots. They said they were going to keep an eye on it, and if I didn't continue to feel better, I needed to come back in or see my OBGYN. So I ended up going back to work after I did my quarantine again, and about the third day back to work, I was extremely tired, but again, I had talked to many people that had COVID, and they said that was such a normal experience for them afterwards, that they still were experiencing fatigue and shortness of breath. I was experiencing quite a bit of shortness of breath. And again, it's so hard to tell because you're like, is this from pregnancy or is this from COVID? I didn't know what it was from. So I just kept going with it. I went to work. I remember the third day, I was so tired. I had to take a nap on my lunch break in my car. I just could not go about the day anymore. I was just so fatigued. I couldn't handle it anymore. That afternoon, I didn't eat too well that day. I ate like little small things, but again, I was just like so busy with work, and then I ended up taking a nap that I just really wasn't too hungry. So I started to feel really lightheaded. I was like, okay, I was on the phone with my husband and I said, I'm gonna go get a quick snack from the vending machine because I just don't feel good. And my husband's like, okay. So as I'm on the phone with him, he was like, what's going on? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just not feeling good. I'm just, hopefully if I get something to eat, I'll be fine. I'll be better. And he's like, you're not even making any sense at all. When he was talking to me, at a certain point, I couldn't even understand what he was saying. It was just like, you know, in a cartoon when it's like, blah, 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 blah. That was the exact feeling I had when I was at the vending machine. I was like, I don't know what's going on with my body, but I need to get back to my desk immediately. So I immediately go back to my desk. I'm still on the phone with my husband because I had him on my AirPods. And I'm just like, I gotta let you go. I just don't feel good at all. I don't know, maybe I just need to eat. I can just replay this in my mind and it feels like I'm reliving it. I couldn't even talk to him. I didn't even have the energy to talk to him. My husband was so concerned. He ended up calling my best friend. She came over to my office right away and she knew something was wrong. She tried to feed me like some foods that might help me in case my blood sugar was low. And she started taking me to the hospital right away because I was like, I don't feel good. And I was worried. I thought I might possibly was going to die. At that moment, I was like, God, please don't let me die. I have a baby inside of me. I have a baby at home and a husband. I need to just make it through. Like, that was just what I was thinking in my mind. So my friend ended up driving me to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, I was still super lethargic. I started having numbness in my tongue. And I really couldn't even talk to her anything that made sense. I started having numbness all on my right side of my arm. I could barely even like lift it. And my friend was getting a little bit worried because she kind of has a little bit of medical background. She was worried that it could be a stroke. Just based on the symptoms I was having, and she didn't want to worry me, but she knew she wanted to get me immediately to the hospital. So I get there and start seeing what could possibly be wrong. And basically I was there again the rest of the night, and then a few more days after that. They ended up diagnosing me with a blood clot after many tests, MRIs and scans and everything like that they had to do in order to see, but they ended up saying that I ended up having a blood clot and I needed to be on blood thinners. It's very common when you're pregnant, but also even more so when you are a COVID patient. And since they didn't have much studies to show what happens to pregnant women when they have COVID, they just wanted to take every precaution necessary. I ended up being in the hospital again, and at this point I just had so much going on. Like, personally, my grandpa wasn't doing well. He also caught COVID and was in the hospital. He, at this time, was just entering the hospital and we didn't know the severity of his COVID. So I was just dealing with a lot going on personally. They finally released me and said I needed to be on bed rest for the remainder of my pregnancy. I was about 8.5 months at this point, and if you know, full term is technically 10 months. So I still had 1.5 months to go, which really kind of worried me because I didn't want to take that extra time because I knew it was going to take away from my time with Theo once he was here. That was just what I had to do. So I didn't know how we were going to do it financially, what was going to happen, but my husband was like, we will figure everything out. Don't worry about that. We just need to worry about getting you healthy, and you need to take care of the baby that's growing inside of you. So those were the two priorities. I ended up going back home. I had to take injections for blood thinners because when you're pregnant, you're not able to take pills. You have to get it injected by shots. So I every day was having to have injections, and it would end up leaving bruises on me, and it was really painful, but I had to do what I had to do in order to make sure I had a healthy and safe pregnancy. Like I said, my grandpa was in the hospital. I was still dealing with the side effects of COVID and being pregnant, and I was not doing well. Even still leading up after to being released the second time, I wasn't doing well. But I tried to just cling to the fact that God was healing me and I was going to be fine, and I am going to be made new because of his promises. So, and I knew I had a lot of family members praying for me. During this time, my grandfather started to really get bad at this point with COVID, and he needed to be intubated, like have an intubator, I think that's what it's called, when they put the tube down to help you to breathe, since your oxygen levels were too low. They went below 60% and they needed to intubate him at this point. So my family needed to make that decision, what they were going to do, if they were going to do it or not, because the statistics are not very good with COVID patients that need to be intubated and coming back. So at this point, my family, like my uncles and my grandma, all discussed and said it was in his best interest to get intubated. So hopefully he can let his body heal and start to come back. Unfortunately, we went on for 2 to 3 more weeks like this. Every day was just a challenge and an emotional challenge because the updates that they were giving us, and I know sometimes my family couldn't give me a lot of the updates because they were worried about me and they didn't want me to start to do worse because of it. But it was hard because he wasn't doing good. Every day we were praying hard, like I mean hard. Every night we would get together on FaceTime and we would all have like prayer sessions for my grandfather. And in the end, it was about a month later and he still wasn't doing well. At this point, out of nowhere, my grandmother has always, on my other side, from my mom's side, my grandmother has always been in and out of the hospital, but the past year she's been in and out so much more. I hadn't even thought about her health because at this point we were just worried about my grandfather on my dad's side. And at this point, out of nowhere, my grandmother, my mom said, called me and said, I don't think she's going to make it this week. And I had never heard my mom say that. She said, she always was like, I don't think she's going to, in the past year, she's like, I don't think she's going to make it past this year. I don't think she's going to make it. And I was like, I don't know, Mom. I think she's really strong. She survived so many things. I think she'll be, like in my head, I was like, I think she's going to be good. But this week, my mom kind of was like, I don't think she's going to make it. There's something inside of me that says, I don't think she's going to make it this week. My mom was right. A few days later, my grandmother ended up in the hospital and they couldn't keep her on life support anymore. Like, she was non-responsive, and a bunch of other things, that she had so many other health issues that they decided, they knew this wasn't the life that she wanted to live, and she had kept telling them that, like, she couldn't wait to go to heaven because she was, every time she had a near-death experience, she was like, they sent me back, it wasn't my time, and I saw my parents, and like the way my mom describes it, that she told her, it was just bittersweet, like, because it made us feel comfort that heaven is such a beautiful place, and she had no fear to go, and she was ready to go, but also it was sad because we weren't ready for that. So that Sunday they ended up taking her off of life support. We got to say our goodbyes to her, and it killed me inside to say goodbye to her, but I felt like I had that closure in saying goodbye to my grandmother. And I put her hand on my belly. I can remember it right now. I put her hand on my belly, and I was like, I wish you could meet him. I wish you could just meet him before you went. But I know that you need to go because you haven't been doing good for a long time. So I know that you're going to watch over him until he comes and is here with me on earth. So at this point, my grandmother passed like a couple hours after I saw her. They ended up unplugging her. So we were dealing with that sadness and dealing with trying to figure out what we were going to do for the funerals and my family and stuff. So about a few days later, I think it was almost a week later, after we did the funerals and everything for my grandmother, my grandfather passed away as well. So he ended up passing away from COVID, and I just was like, I can't believe it. Like, how could I lose 2 grandparents in 1 week? Like, why, God? Like, I was just questioning everything. I was like, for once, can I just catch a break? Like, I just had COVID. I just was fighting for my life, and now my grandparents have passed away and I don't have them here anymore, and I didn't even get to see them that much this year because of COVID. And it was so much emotionally going on. Even now, we play Get Back, I'm just like, it was just a really hard year emotionally. So then we had to prepare for that as well, and emotionally it was a lot going on. I almost cracked because, you know, your hormones are going crazy already as it is, and then all of that, it was just too much to handle. We ended up doing the funeral for my grandfather, and it was so beautiful. It was a celebration of life, and it was just so beautiful. Both of my grandparents that passed away, they would never want us to be sad. That just wasn't their personalities. They were just always so happy and so loving that, like, literally I have a lump in my throat right now, that I knew they wouldn't want us to be sad. So their celebration of life instead of a funeral was absolutely beautiful. And it was just something I knew they would have been happy to see everyone be together and everything like that. And despite the circumstances, I ended up having Luisito one day because my husband was working. So I was by myself, and I was like, I needed to take out Sky, and I had my son with me, so I had no choice. I had to take out Sky with my big belly and everything like that. Sky, if you don't know, Sky is our husky, and she pulls, and I love her and everything, but she can be a little bit too much to handle, especially when you're pregnant and not as strong. Just because she gets excited and she hasn't been outside. I usually struggle a little bit taking them both out, but I figured, you know what, I'll have my son go on push his little toy, and then I'll walk with her and it'll be fine. We'll just go quickly. During this time when I was walking with Sky, Luisito all of a sudden turned back. You know, we were on the sidewalk, but there's also roads around that part. So when we were on the sidewalk, I was walking, and usually Luisito walks in front of me, but for whatever reason today, he was just really dragging behind me. And Sky started pulling me, and then all of a sudden, I turned back around, and he was running toward the road, which was only like 4 feet away from us at this point. And as I see him running to the road, it was just like life was moving so slow but fast at the same time. I could see a car from the stop sign starting to like come the same direction as him, and I started freaking out. Like, I wish, like, it wasn't like I couldn't have any control of my body. It was like a horrible nightmare that like you just didn't have control. I see him running, so then I immediately let go of Sky and start trying to run after him. Obviously, I'm pregnant, haven't worked out in months now at this point. I'm huge. I only have a couple more weeks till my due date, and I'm running after my son because I'm scared to death that he's going to get hit by this car that's coming. So as I turned to run toward him, I tripped and I fell straight on my belly, being pregnant at this point. And I didn't even think about it. I just was like freaking out that my son was going to possibly get hit by a car. I get up again and try to run full speed. And as I'm getting up, it's like my body just gave out on me. Like I got up and took one step and I fell again on my stomach. And I'm like bleeding all on my arms because I scraped myself from the sidewalk. And luckily he was on the road at this point, but the car didn't hit him. I don't even think they saw him, or maybe they did, but they just kept going and they didn't hit him. They were only a few feet away, but they didn't hit him. And everything just happened so, I can remember it to this day. I thought my son was gonna die. I literally thought he was going to die and just run right in front of that car. And I can't even explain to you the fear and the anxiety that I had. And I continued to have for weeks after thinking about it, that I was like, I literally lost it as soon as I knew he was okay. I ended up having to go to the hospital because I couldn't feel Theo anymore at this point. And I was worried. I was so worried. Like, if you know Theo, he was active 24/7 in my belly. Like, I felt him every single second, all of the time, every minute. He was just so active in my belly that it was like sometimes annoying because I couldn't sleep. But at this point I was like, God, I regret ever being annoyed by him moving in any way, shape, or form. Like, please just let my baby be okay. Like, please. I was just begging God at this point, like begging him. So they ended up taking me to the hospital. They ended up doing an ultrasound and he was fine, but they needed me to stay overnight again to monitor the baby, to make sure that like nothing happened to him or the sac overnight, because it was such a traumatic fall. So again, I was just losing it because I was like, there's another day I have to be away from my family. I just want everything to go smoothly. Like, I just had so much going on and being thrown at me, God. Like, I just cannot handle it. At this point, we still hadn't had a name for him yet. We didn't even know if he was a boy or a girl. We had a girl name, and I won't share that because if we ever get to have our girl, I still want to name her that. So at this point, we still hadn't had a name yet, and one of my friends, her son was named Theo, and I've always heard Theo on a show that we watch pretty regularly every week, me and my husband. And I always liked that name, but I was like, I feel like I can't name my son after her son because, you know, you're just like, somebody else has that name. But I loved it so much. Like, I loved the meaning of it, which means gift from God. And I was like, I just feel like that's meant to be our son's name. Like, if we had a son, I told my husband, I just feel like I'm just so drawn to this name Theo. Like, everything about it, like the meaning behind it, like that is, I felt like once we knew the name that it could be a boy, because I was like, I just feel like that's meant to be the name. Everything that had gone on that past year, it just, that's like a garbage truck. Everything that had gone on past that year, it just felt like he was a survivor. Like, I went through COVID. I went through losing both of my grandparents. I went through falling on my stomach with him when something really traumatic could have happened to him. I just felt like he was a gift from God. Like, he was meant to do something great, and I feel like he really is meant to do something great. And I know everyone probably thinks that about their kid, but I'm telling you, like, something inside of me as a mom is just like, he's meant to do something so special in this world, and I don't know what it is, but I just know that God has that calling over his life. And Lewis's cousin ended up messaging me and was like, I was praying about this the other night, and I just thought how crazy that the devil knows the strong calling that your son has over his life, or your baby has over its life. And it's been, because at this point nobody knew the gender. She's like, and the devil is literally trying everything it can do to destroy this baby or make things so difficult on you because you're carrying this baby. And that's how special God's plans are over this baby. And that made me weep. I lost it. And I was like, that's why his name was meant to be Theo. Like, he is a gift from God, and I just knew it had to be his name. But I was struggling with it, and finally one day my husband's like, I think I like the name Theodore. And I was like, it's perfect. It means the same exact thing, a gift from God. And he's like, I love Theodore because it just sounds like, you know, it's a full name, and the meaning is a gift from God, and we could call him Theo, or we can call him Teddy, or Theodore. Like, he has multiple options for whatever he wants to be called, and I just think it's perfect. As soon as he said it, I was like, it's perfect. Like, that's the name. And Alexander, we just loved how Alexander fit in there, and it was his uncle's middle name as well. So Theodore Alexander is his name, and Alexander means, I believe it's warrior for men. So we just thought that was a really beautiful name, because we do feel like he is going to be something very, very special, and he needs a really special name to go with that. So a strong name. So I feel like that is that. So yeah, that's pretty much, I know this is so lengthy. I don't even know how I'm going to end up editing this video because it's so much. But if you guys made it to the end of this video, you guys are the real MVPs. You guys are my loyal like viewers, and I am so grateful for you guys. But I just wanted to share, and I stopped recording because it was saying it's been too long. Sorry about that. So I was really nervous about doing the C-section because of that, but everything went pretty smoothly in the operating room. I was super nervous, but I had kept praying to God that he would protect us, protect my baby, and everything I just knew was going to be okay. Also because somebody had ended up meeting us a few weeks before, and they were like, you know, I don't know anything going on with you, but I just want you to know that God is going to take care of you and your baby, and everything is going to be fine, and you're going to have a good delivery, and your baby's going to come out just fine. And she didn't even know anything about what had been happening in my life with my health and my sickness, and I was just like, okay, that's God. God is telling me this right now, and it's going to be fine. So I had peace knowing that, but I just was just so nervous about the C-section afterwards. Everything went good. I will say the pain this time around was way worse. I was up and moving around after 4 hours of having my C-section. I even asked them to shower, so they let me after they took out my catheter, and I showered by myself, and everything was fine. I didn't have to take any medication besides Tylenol, and I was in pain, but nothing that wasn't manageable. This time around, I had to take the Percocets. If I didn't get ahead of the pain, it was so bad. It was so bad. We didn't have Luisito there because, you know, COVID restrictions. Only my husband was able to be in there. But it was just a lot harder. Even coming back home, I had to continue to take the Percocets. It was just so much more painful this time around. Everything about it, and it was just, it was everything I was worried about, not being able to hold my baby. It was hard. And then you still have to like do things like they need to go in their crib, they need to be changed. So I had to modify so many things in order to do that. Luckily, my family helped me out tremendously. Louis's parents, my parents, they would come over and they would watch Luisito for me. Or take him to church, or take him to do certain things, so that way I could just focus on Theo. And it was a huge blessing to have that, because this time around I was like, I need to ask for help when I need it. And luckily I didn't have to ask. People just volunteered to help out, and I was super appreciative of that, because sometimes I suck at asking for help. So that was really appreciative. But yeah, I feel like that was a really long explanation of my birth and pregnancy story, and how Theo became Theo in our life, and how we picked his name and everything like that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really miss doing YouTube videos so much. I miss interacting with you guys. But I find myself not having any downtime, and the little bit of downtime I do have, I just want to relax after I've done pumping and just relax for a few minutes after I clean the house and do everything like that. So I'm trying to get back into the swing of things with doing YouTube videos. I'm going back to work next week and then also taking back clients again. So it's quite a bit going on in my life, but I feel like that's always the case with us. So I'm just taking it day by day and trying not to overwhelm myself. And this time just enjoy every second I get with him, because it goes by way, way, way too fast. And I don't want to miss a moment with him while he needs me like this. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye. Let me show you guys Theo. He's so cute. He is identical to Lucy though. They're twins. This is how he looked like when he was a baby.